Okay, we're going to do set 2 problems here in lesson number 1 for chapter 3. And we'll read problem number 4. We're asked here, what do the positive and negative numbers mean in each of the following statements? So the first one is the melting point of mercury is negative 31 degrees Celsius. So what do they mean by that? Well, 39 degrees below zero is basically what we're saying. That's the reference point of 39, negative 39. The elevation of the Caspian Sea is negative 29 meters. What do they mean? Well, they mean that the elevation of the Caspian Sea is 29 degrees, or excuse me, 29 feet or meters, this is the case, below sea level. So the point there, it's below sea level. See, the point of reference in terms of elevation is sea level. So if we were to look at, let's say, ground, all right, and it just moves upward and it goes up. Let's just say something like this, and then we're just going to come downward. All right, and let's say this is like Mount Everest, okay? Now we know that Mount Everest isn't next to the sea, but we're going to sort of, we're going to put it next to the sea and say, well, if let's say the sea level were here, okay, that's sea level. The distance from this point all the way to the very top, okay, of Mount Everest be somewhere close to, like, let's say 29,000 feet. Okay, that's quite a bit of feet in terms of elevation. In fact, there's 5,280 feet in a mile. So if you did your math into that, you'd probably come up with at least 5 miles above sea level. So sea level is here, and then there are places that are actually below sea level. And you might say, well, wouldn't they be under the sea? Well, not necessarily, because maybe the sea is somewhere else, and there's enough land over the sea, over the oceans, over the sea, that it's actually below sea level. In fact, there's the city of New Orleans, which everyone I'm sure is familiar with, is actually part of it is below sea level, which is why they have these levees that are built around it. And when we understood that when the levees broke in Hurricane Katrina, a lot of water came rushing in and flooded these areas because the levees were there to protect the city. But some places have, let's just say, natural levees, and they're not necessarily called levees, it's just land. They're parts of land that simply are below sea level. So, but they're landlocked. There's plenty of land between the sea and that part that's below sea level. So elevation is important, and we'll measure that in positive and in negative. Okay, as we see, the Caspian Sea is negative 29 meters. Now you might say, well, that's a sea in itself. Well, we can reference any point on the Earth in reference to sea level. Okay. And when we reference sea level, generally we're referencing actually the levels of the oceans, and that's what we actually call sea. So anyway, I know we've played around there a lot, danced around a lot of words there, but sea level is a reference point for elevation. The emperor, or the Roman Emperor Nero, was born in plus 37, and plus 37 is 37 years after the birth of Christ. AD, which we use also, I believe it's Anno Domini. Please don't quote my Latin. Something like that, to the extent that it's basically in the year of the Lord. So we know that the birth of Christ is a point 0, let's say, on a calendar, Emperor Nero was born in plus 37. Now, we wouldn't say that. We would say 37 AD. And if he would have been born 37 years below, we wouldn't have said negative 37. We would have said 37 BC. Now, the class starts in negative 10 minutes. Now, how could we say something started negative 10 minutes? Well, it means that it started 10 minutes ago. means you're late if you just walked in. So it's a point of reference, and that's what's really important. That's what we're learning here with these integers, with these positive and negative integers. Let's look at number 5. The fact that plus 37 degrees Celsius is a higher temperature than plus 25 degrees Celsius can be expressed in the symbols as plus 37 is greater than plus 20. Use symbols to express their number relationships in the following statements. Okay, so we have an elevation of 12 meters is higher than an elevation of negative 15 meters. So how would we be able to express that? Well, let's move over to the corner here. In fact, we should probably get rid of our Mount Everest. We'll just move Mount Everest, moving mountains. Let's just get rid of this. And we can now write on our board. Well, we have plus 12, right? So now we can, as we already said, we can actually write that without the plus, but let's use what they're giving us just so we can see the difference between one and the other in terms of how they're using the plus and minus. So we have plus 12, and that is higher than negative 15, or let's just say greater than negative 15. Okay, so plus 12 or 12, we can just write, is greater than negative 15. The temperature of negative 196 degrees Celsius is lower than the temperature of negative 78 degrees. So how would we write that? Well, negative 196 is less than, okay, and it's less than what? Negative 78. Okay. Now, if you would have written this differently, let's say you would have written negative 78 and written it this way, had written it backwards. This actually would have been wrong in terms of writing it the way they're expressing it, because what we're saying here now is that negative 78 is greater than negative 196, and they wanted us to write this using symbols to express the relationship of negative 176 to negative 78, not negative 78 to 176 or negative 176. So we would have had to have written it negative 196 is less than, as they said, is lower than negative 78. So let's really pay very close attention to what they're saying, and this is going to be very helpful, particularly as we embark on word problems. We really have to be able to translate the words into expression. So what's the next one? The number negative 3 is to the left of the number plus 3 on a number line. Okay, so how would we express that? Well, it doesn't really say like greater than or less than, but since they're giving it to us in that order, then we should keep it in that order and just simply say that negative 3 is to the left, so it will be less than. Negative 3 is to the left is less than positive 3, okay? And, you know, whether you put the plus 3 or not, we obviously do not necessarily write it, particularly in our equations, though we will embark on that as well in understanding the terms and their positive and negative values as they are written in an equation. But again, just for this simple exercise, we're using the symbols of plus and negative. Now, the apparent weight of a helium balloon, negative 22 grams, is more than the apparent weight of a hydrogen balloon, negative 24. So we would say negative 22 is more than or greater than negative 24. Okay, so these are all the answers to these. We wrote them exactly how they were telling us. Okay,